Hello everyone, and welcome to my channel Y&R Trends. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. The tension inside the Newman mansion was thick enough to slice through. The air was charged, not with the usual family business disputes or subtle digs, but with something far more personal: betrayal. Victoria Newman had been holding herself together for days, but tonight, her composure cracked wide open. The truth about Claire and Holden had just come to light, and it hit Victoria like a thunderbolt she never saw coming. When she found out what they had been hiding, what they had done, the word liar ripped from her lips before she could stop it. It wasn't just anger. It was heartbreak, disbelief, and humiliation crashing into one overwhelming moment that shook her to the core. Claire had been the daughter Victoria thought she lost, her second chance at family, trust, and healing. Holden, on the other hand, had slowly worked his way into their lives, charming everyone with his calm demeanor and his protective nature over Claire. He had positioned himself as a trustworthy figure, someone who seemed to bring stability to Claire's chaotic emotions. But the secret that had just come out shattered every illusion. It wasn't just about a lie. It was about manipulation, deceit, and a betrayal so deep that it redefined every conversation, every smile, every promise they had shared. Victoria couldn't believe that the people she had opened her heart to had been playing her for a fool. The confrontation erupted in the living room, where the storm outside mirrored the chaos within. The rain pounded against the windows as Victoria faced Claire and Holden, her face pale but her eyes blazing. "You lied to me," she hissed, her voice trembling with fury. "Both of you. You looked me in the eye." Claire's lips quivered, her usual confidence shattered. Holden tried to step in, his voice calm but shaking at the edges. "Victoria, please, it's not what you think." But those words only ignited her further. "Don't you dare," she snapped, cutting him off. "Don't you dare try to twist this. I know the truth now." Claire's eyes filled with tears as she tried to explain. "I didn't mean to hurt you, Mom," she whispered, her voice breaking. It got out of control." The word Mom only deepened the wound. Victoria had fought so hard to rebuild their relationship after the painful revelations of the past. She had defended Claire to everyone, insisting that her daughter deserved a second chance, that she was different now, stable, trustworthy. But the look on Claire's face, the guilt, the fear, it told Victoria everything she needed to know. This wasn't just a mistake. It was a choice. A lie. A betrayal that had been festering beneath the surface for months. The silence that followed was deafening until Victoria's hand shot out before she could stop herself. The sound of the slap echoed across the room like a gunshot. Claire's head turned sharply from the impact, her eyes wide with shock and tears streaming down her cheeks. Holden stepped forward instantly, grabbing Victoria's wrist. "That's enough," he shouted, his voice raw. But Victoria yanked her hand free, glaring at him with venom. "Don't you touch me," she spat. "You have no right. Not after what you did." The fury in her voice was something Holden had never heard before, and for the first time, he didn't have words to defuse it. "Tell me the truth, Claire," Victoria demanded through gritted teeth. "Tell me everything. Now." Claire hesitated, her breathing uneven as her eyes darted to Holden. That hesitation, that single moment of silence, told Victoria everything. "Oh my God," she gasped, stepping back as if she had been physically struck again. "You're still protecting him." Her voice cracked. "Even now." Claire shook her head frantically. "No, it's not like that. I swear I was just trying to protect you." But Victoria cut her off. "Protect me? By lying to me? By sneaking around behind my back with him?" The disgust in her tone was unmistakable. Holden finally spoke, his voice low and controlled. "Victoria, please let me explain. Claire and I didn't plan for things to happen this way. We were trying to handle it before you found out." "Handle it?" she interrupted, laughing bitterly. "You were trying to handle it? What exactly were you handling, Holden? The fact that you were sleeping with her? The fact that you were keeping secrets from me while smiling to my face?" Her voice rose with each word, the pain turning into something almost unbearable. Holden's face drained of color, and he opened his mouth to speak, but Victoria wasn't done. "You came into my home. You made me believe you cared about this family. You made me believe you cared about me." The tears finally came, unrelenting and furious. And all along you were lying. Both of you. Claire sobbed, shaking her head. It's not like that, Mom. You don't understand. Then make me understand. Victoria screamed. Because right now the only thing I see is betrayal. The word hung in the air, heavy and final. Holden reached for Claire's shoulder, but she stepped back, unable to meet his gaze. The guilt on her face was unmistakable, and Victoria saw it clearly. You knew, she whispered, her voice breaking. You knew he was lying, and you went along with it. Claire nodded faintly, tears streaming down her cheeks. I thought I was doing the right thing. The right thing. Victoria repeated in disbelief. You've got to be kidding me. She turned away for a moment, running her hands through her hair as if trying to make sense of it all. Do you have any idea what this does to me? To us? I fought for you, Claire. I defended you when everyone told me not to. I believed in you when no one else would. Claire's sobs grew louder. I know, and I'm sorry. Sorry isn't enough, Victoria cried out. Not this time. She turned her fury toward Holden again. And you played me from the start. You used Claire's vulnerability to get closer to me. You made me think you were helping her heal, when all you were doing was manipulating both of us. Holden looked genuinely torn. That's not true, he insisted. I care about you both. What happened wasn't manipulation. It was real. Victoria's laughter was hollow, echoing through the room like a cruel reminder of how broken everything had become. Real? You wouldn't know what real is if it hit you in the face. She took a step closer, her voice lowering but dripping with venom. You're a liar, Holden. A selfish, heartless liar. Then she turned to Claire again, her voice softening but still trembling with fury. And you're my daughter. You're supposed to love me. How could you keep this from me? How could you lie to my face every single day? Claire collapsed onto the couch, her hands covering her face as sobs racked her body. Holden looked like he wanted to comfort her, but Victoria's glare froze him in place. Don't you dare go near her, she warned. You've done enough damage. The silence that followed was suffocating, broken only by the sound of Claire's quiet crying. Victoria turned away, her breathing heavy. She walked toward the window, staring out into the storm, the reflection of lightning flickering across her tear-streaked face. I thought we were finally moving forward, she whispered. After everything, the lies, the kidnappings, the chaos, I thought we were healing. But this. She shook her head. This destroys everything. Holden finally spoke, his voice heavy with guilt. Victoria, please. Let me fix this. She turned around slowly, her eyes filled with cold fury. You can't fix this. You can't undo what you did. You took advantage of me, of my trust, of my daughter's confusion. And for what? To feel powerful? To control us both. Holden looked down, unable to meet her gaze. I never meant to hurt you, he said quietly. But you did, Victoria replied sharply. And now you have to live with it. She took a deep breath, steadying herself. Get out. Both of you. Claire looked up in shock. Mom, please. I said get out. Victoria shouted. The force in her voice left no room for argument. Holden hesitated, glancing between the two women, but Victoria's expression made it clear there was no reasoning with her. He placed a hand on Claire's arm. Come on, he whispered. Claire shook her head. No, I'm not leaving her. I can't. But Victoria pointed toward the door. You already left me, Claire. The second you chose to lie. The words sliced through the room like a blade. Claire's tears flowed freely as she stood, her shoulders trembling. I'm sorry, she whispered one last time before walking out the door with Holden following behind her. As soon as the door closed, Victoria sank to the floor, her body shaking from the sobs she had been holding back. The house was eerily quiet now, the only sound being the faint rumble of thunder outside. She pressed her hands to her face, the sting from slapping Claire still burning on her palm, a reminder of how far everything had spiraled. The daughter she fought so hard to bring back into her life had betrayed her trust again, and the man she thought she could maybe finally love had turned out to be nothing more than another liar. It was a pain deeper than any business loss or personal failure. It was the pain of love turned to ashes. Later that night, alone in the dim light of the living room, Victoria stared at a photo of her and Claire taken just a few months ago. They had both been smiling, arms around each other, a picture of hope. Now that photo felt like a cruel joke. "How did we get here?" she whispered to the empty room. Her voice cracked as tears filled her eyes again. "How did you do this to me, Claire?" The silence gave her no answer, only the echo of her own heartache. She picked up the frame and set it face down on the table, unable to bear the sight any longer. Meanwhile, outside in the rain, Claire stood on the driveway, shaking uncontrollably. Holden tried to put his jacket around her shoulders, but she pushed him away. "Don't," she said weakly. "This is all your fault." Holden's face fell. "Claire, I never wanted it to happen like this. I thought if we kept it quiet we could protect her." Claire turned on him, her voice trembling. "Protect her? You destroyed her. You destroyed us." She took a step back, her eyes filled with both fury and despair. "You made me believe lying was the right thing. You told me it would be okay." Holden's voice broke. "I love you." But Claire shook her head in disbelief. "You don't even know what love is. You just ruin everything you touch." She turned and ran off into the storm, leaving Holden standing there alone, drenched and defeated. Inside the house, Victoria watched from the window, her heart breaking all over again. She didn't know what hurt more, the lies themselves or the realization that she might never be able to trust her daughter again. The storm raged through the night, but inside, the real destruction had already taken place. The Newman family had weathered countless scandals before, but this one cut deeper than any of them. This wasn't about power, money, or revenge. This was about love, twisted, fragile, and betrayed. Victoria sat alone until the early hours of the morning, staring into the darkness, one word echoing in her mind over and over again: liar. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Claire's face, the tears, the guilt, the silence that said everything words couldn't. Part of her wanted to believe there was more to the story, that somehow there was an explanation that could make sense of it all. But deep down she knew the truth. The trust she had rebuilt with Claire had been shattered again, and this time it might never recover. As dawn broke over Genoa City, Victoria made herself a promise. No more lies. No more second chances. From now on she would protect herself, even if it meant closing her heart forever. And somewhere out there, Claire sat alone, crying in the rain, realizing the weight of what she'd done. The word liar still echoed in her mind, not from Victoria's lips but from her own conscience. Because in the end, no matter what excuses she had made, no matter what reasons she believed, she had lied. And in Genoa City, lies always come with a price. The air in the grand foyer of the Abbott mansion, usually so still and perfumed with the scent of polished wood and expensive flowers, seemed to crackle with a dangerous, unseen energy. It was the kind of quiet that comes not from absence, but from a terrible gathering presence, the calm in the eye of a hurricane just before the backside of the storm wreaks its devastation. Victoria Newman, her posture as rigid and impeccable as her designer dress, stood facing Claire Grace, and the very atmosphere seemed to warp around them, bending under the weight of a truth too monstrous to speak aloud. For weeks, perhaps even months, a secret had been woven into the fabric of their lives, a delicate, intricate tapestry of hidden glances, hushed phone calls, and carefully constructed alibis that centered around one man, Holden Abbott. He was the thread that bound them, Victoria and Claire, in this silent, desperate pact, a pact built on a foundation of sand that was now irrevocably washing away. The secret, which had started as a thrilling, forbidden ember, had been fanned into a raging inferno by a careless word, a slip of the tongue in a public place, or perhaps by the cunning machinations of someone who had always lurked in the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Now the truth was out. It hung in the space between the two women, not as a mere piece of information, but as a living, breathing entity that had shattered the fragile peace they had so painstakingly maintained. The revelation had not come gently. It was not a slow dawning but a violent eruption, a verbal bomb detonated in the midst of a crowded society event or perhaps in the deceptively tranquil setting of the Newman Ranch, with family and friends as the unwitting audience to the carnage. One moment there was the mundane chatter of Genoa City's elite, the clinking of champagne glasses a soundtrack to superficial lives, and the next there was a voice, sharp and clear, slicing through the pretense and naming the unnameable. "Everyone knows about you and Holden." The words, once released, could not be taken back. They took on a physical form, striking Victoria with the force of a physical blow. She could feel the blood drain from her face, a cold numbness spreading from her core to her extremities, only to be replaced a second later by a scalding wave of pure, undiluted panic. Her eyes, a piercing Newman blue that could command boardrooms, darted frantically from the speaker to Claire, and in that single horrifying glance, she saw the confirmation. It was all there in Claire's wide, terrified eyes, in the guilty slump of her shoulders, in the way her hand flew to her mouth as if to physically trap the secret inside. The carefully constructed fortress of lies, the wall she had built brick by brick to protect her reputation, her marriage, her very identity, crumbled into dust around her in the span of a single silent second. A red haze descended over Victoria's vision, a primal response to a threat so profound it bypassed all reason, all civility, all the years of corporate training and social conditioning. This was not the calculated strategic anger of a CEO in a hostile takeover. This was the raw, untamed fury of a woman whose entire world was being publicly dismantled. The whispers started then, a sibilant hiss that seemed to come from the very walls, as the gathered crowd processed the scandal. She could feel their eyes on her, could see the flicker of judgment and worse, pity in their gazes. Every laugh now sounded mocking, every whispered comment was undoubtedly about her. Her life, her secrets, her most intimate failings, were being served up as the evening's entertainment. And standing at the center of it all was Claire, the living, breathing embodiment of her downfall. Claire, who had been a part of the secret, who had shared in the risk and the thrill, and whose very presence now was a testament to Victoria's catastrophic error in judgment. The anger focused, sharpened, honing in on Claire's pale, stricken face. It was an anger born of betrayal, of fear, of a profound and utter humiliation that seared her very soul. The slap was not a conscious decision. It was a kinetic reaction, a physical manifestation of the emotional cataclysm raging within her. Her arm seemed to move of its own volition, a piston firing driven by pure instinct. The sound it made was not the loud, dramatic crack of cinema, but something far worse, a thick, wet, sickening smack of flesh against flesh that was horribly intimate and jarringly violent in the opulent setting. Time itself seemed to fracture, slowing to a crawl. Victoria felt the impact travel all the way up her arm, a jolt that resonated in her teeth. She saw Claire's head snap to the side, a sharp, brutal motion, saw the immediate bloom of crimson on her cheek, a stark, terrible contrast to the pale skin. A collective, sharp gasp rippled through the room, a wave of shock that was almost palpable. For a moment there was absolute silence, broken only by Claire's soft, choked sob as her hand rose to cradle her wounded face, her eyes wide with a mixture of pain and disbelief. The mark of Victoria's hand was already beginning to form, a livid, accusing brand that told the whole story without a single word. In the stark, silent aftermath of the blow, the world rushed back in with a dizzying, nauseating clarity. The adrenaline that had fueled the action receded, leaving behind a cold, hollow emptiness. Victoria looked at her own stinging palm, the skin tingling and red, as if it belonged to someone else. She looked at Claire, who was now crying in earnest, quiet, shuddering sobs that shook her entire frame. And she looked at the faces of the people around them, horrified, fascinated, judgmental. The consequences, which had been an abstract concept moments before, now landed on her with their full, crushing weight. She had not just revealed a secret, she had revealed herself. In that one uncontrolled moment, she had shown the world the tempest that lay beneath the polished surface of Victoria Newman. The CEO, the heiress, the powerful scion of the Newman dynasty, had been stripped away, leaving only a wounded, furious woman capable of a shocking public assault. The secret about Holden was now secondary. The headline would be her violence. The narrative was no longer about a hidden affair, but about her loss of control. She had intended to punish Claire for the betrayal, but in doing so, she had handed her own reputation over to the wolves. The fallout began almost instantly, a chain reaction of shock and recrimination that would ripple through the lives of everyone connected to them. Someone rushed to Claire's side, a protective arm going around her shoulders, shooting Victoria a look of pure venom. Murmurs grew into exclamations. Phones were discreetly pulled from pockets, no doubt to text the shocking news to anyone who wasn't fortunate enough to witness it firsthand. Did you see that? Victoria just slapped Claire. Over Holden Abbott, can you believe it? The gossip took flight, a malignant bird spreading its wings over Genoa City. For Victoria, it was as if she were watching the scene from a great distance, trapped inside a glass box. The sounds were muffled, the faces blurred. All she could feel was the cold dread coiling in her stomach. What had she done? The question echoed in the hollow space the anger had left behind. This single act of violence had just made a complicated, messy situation infinitely worse. It had given Claire the one thing she perhaps hadn't had before, the undeniable status of the victim. And it had painted Victoria as the aggressor, the unhinged other woman, the villain of the piece. The focus would inevitably and brutally shift to Holden Abbott, the man whose affections, whose very existence, had been the catalyst for this public implosion. Where was he in all of this? Was he standing somewhere in that very room, frozen in his own horror, watching the two women in his life self-destruct over him? Or had he been absent, his cowardice or his ignorance somehow contributing to the pressure cooker that had just exploded? The secret, whatever its precise nature, was a burden they had all carried, but it was Victoria who had now broken under its weight in the most spectacular fashion. Holden would now be forced out of the shadows, compelled to choose a side, to offer explanations, to face the music in a way he had perhaps never anticipated. The comfortable ambiguity of their arrangement was gone, replaced by the harsh, unforgiving light of public scrutiny. Would he go to Claire, the one who had been publicly struck? Or would he stand by Victoria, the one who had done the striking, and try to salvage something from the wreckage? His next move would be dissected with the same fervor as the slap itself, another piece of drama for the consuming public.